Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Committee on Ordinances, Licensed Legal Affairs, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the city's website at salem.com. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Salem's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Individuals may participate remotely in the meeting via a remote participation platform called Zoom. The link is on the meeting agenda. The password is 463995. If you're in, you already know that. And you can also join by phone, 888-475-4499 or 877-853-5257. Both are toll-free numbers. The webinar ID is 873-7356-1049. Participants can provide public testimony on Zoom. Click on the raise hand button when public testimony is open. If you're joining by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. City Council Committee on Ordinances, Licensed Legal Affairs, composed of a Committee of the Whole, is meeting on Wednesday, June 17th at 6 p.m. for the purpose of discussing 5 matters tonight. Notice of this meeting was posted on June 15th at 4:14 p.m. This meeting is being recorded. I'm going to mute Councilor Sargent for now. In attendance, we have all members of the committee except for Councilor Dibble. Very quickly, just want to say that we're all thinking about Councilor Dibble and his family, and very saddened that he won't be able to join us, and we hope that he and his family will be okay. So we're definitely keeping him in our thoughts. Not being a member of the committee, we have Councilors Hapworth and McCarty. Yep, that's it. And then from the staff, we have Dave Kucharski from Traffic and Parking, Amanda Giancola from Community Development, Planning Community Development. We have Tom Daniel, Director of Planning Community Development. We have Dave Knowlton from Public Services, Dominic Pangalo, Chief of Staff to the Mayor, Lori Jardella from Director of Finance. Who did I miss? I got everyone, right? Okay. All right, so we have 5 matters before us. We have inclusionary housing. We have the water, sewer, and trash fee changes. And lastly, the traffic and parking enforcement on Sundays. I'd like to take it out of order to start with the water, sewer, trash rates, if that's okay with members of the committee. Objections? Take up the traffic parking ordinance, and then we'll save inclusionary zoning for the end. You good? Okay. So first order, number 304, ordinance amending sewer use charges. I'll have Lori walk us through those changes. If there's a specific document you want me to pull up or share screen, feel free to do that. Lori, you're muted.
So I sent over the enterprise, the financial forecast for the enterprise fund, which gives you a breakdown of what the rate is proposed at, and then what the income and expense lines that we list for you to see when we're setting that rate. So if you open that file, do you each have a copy of that? Is that something we can put up on the screen?
Lori, do you want to do that?
I can, if I don't know if I have the ability to. Let me see if it'll let me. So I can't see what's on the screen, but it should say 5-year financial forecast. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So this here provides you with a listing. Here's the fiscal year 20 recap. Here's what is proposed for this year. And this shows you the sewer revenues by line. There's user charges, interest, and penalties, other departmental water liens that we usually receive during the course of the year, water meters and miscellaneous revenues, and backflow revenue. So we have certain projections based on where we think we're going to be for this year. And then we have water sewer expenses and the administration costs, public services, engineering, insurance, long-term debt and principal interest, and the assessments from the SBWSB. So the top section is sewer and the bottom section is water. And you each should have received that schedule.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions or comments from counselors? Lori, if you could stop sharing your screen, then I could see everyone.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from counselors? Counselor Sargent.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
I just didn't get the whole thing. It just said water at the top of the page, and it looked like 4.4% increase from last year to this year. I just want to, on each one of them, know, last year's rate, this year's proposed rate, and then the percent of increase, for water and sewer, just so we can get a rough idea, where we were last year, where we're going to be this year, and what the percentage of increase is.
Okay, so I sent you another sheet, the water sewer rate history sheet, and that has a breakdown by year since 2018, but this year's proposed sewer rates are there, as well as the percentages. So the sewer rate increase is 3.2%, and the water rate is 4.61%.
Excuse me, what's sewer rate is 3.6?
The sewer rate is 3.2, and the water rate is 4.6.
Thank you, Laura.
Also, I attached in that email I sent the community charge comparison sheet that shows what the rates are, how much they increased or in comparison to other communities. The survey that we get is from the MWRA. It is, and the rates that are on these sheets are for these other communities that go back for 2 years. And in most situations, we're much lower than the rates that they've been charging, and that was from a couple of years ago. So Salem's water rates are they're a lot lower than most of the other communities.
Thank you.
And our rate compared to other communities' average rate is much lower. So compared to those two, the 2019 rates, it's 300, and I can't see the amounts. It's three. Hold on, let me just make this bigger so I can see it. I need to get stronger glasses, I think. $386 lower than what the average rate is. And these are the communities that you've been doing comparisons to from before I started working here back in 2017. I was at 18, actually.
Councilor Sargent, you all set?
Almost set. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from councilors? I'm seeing none. I'll open it up to the public in regards to water and sewer rates. If you would like to make a comment, there is a button at the bottom of your screen that says raise hand. You click on that if you'd like to speak in regards to water and sewer rates. Anybody? Seeing none. We can take this motion together, one at a time, but we have to do a hand vote. So do I hear a motion? I unmuted you.
I'll make a motion to send, is it order 304 back to the council with a positive recommendation?
So Councilor Masillo moves to refer this out to the full council to recommend adoption.
Thank you.
Second by Councilor Sargent, you're unmuted.
I might as well second. I'll second.
Second by Councilor Sargent. I'll just write this down and I'll take a roll call. Second by Councilor Sargent on the matter of amending the water rate for fiscal year 2021.
That's the sewer rate.
Sorry, was that the sewer? Sewer rate, thank you. On the matter of amending the sewer rate for FY21, I'll take a roll call. Councilor Masillo,
Yes.
Councilor Sargent,
Yes.
Councilor Postunski,
Yes.
Councilor Madore, yes, and Councilor Dibble absent. The motion carries. Next one, order number 305, amending rates for water. I'll take a motion. Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion to refer this out to the full committee with a positive recommendation.
Councilor Marcillo moves to refer this to the full council for adoption with a positive recommendation. Seconded by Councilor Sargent. Roll call, Councilor Marcillo,
Yes.
Councilor Sargent,
Yes.
Councilor Postunski,
Yes.
Councilor Madore, yes, and Councilor Dibble absent. On the matter of changing the water rate, We have 4 counselors voting. Motion carries. Next one, 306, trash fees.
Council Madore,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I have to recuse myself because I pay this fee. So
Thank you. So how shall we handle that? Now, you know, you just turn it off.
I can listen, but I just can't participate.
Right. I will mute you. Okay, so we have the trash fees. Is that Lori or Dave? You want to talk us through this?
I'm sorry, Christina, I didn't hear what you said.
The trash fees? Who's presenting this one?
Dave, did you want to just speak a little bit about what the costs that are increasing?
Sure, I can do that. You'll see in our budget when we talk next week that we do have contractual increases from Waste Management, which is obviously they're the hauler of recycled materials and our solid waste, and they also dispose of the materials as well. So there's contractual increases in their contract every year, and that's certainly the biggest part of this particular part of our budget. Is the waste management component. So it's not really discretionary. It's just part of our contract that we have with them.
Thank you, Dave. And for members of the public listening in, or perhaps all the counselors, can you just talk about what the escalation rate year to year is for the contract?
Give me a minute. I'll have to look it up. It's a 2.5% increase on both the disposal cost and the pickup. So 2% each on each of those.
Thank you.
That equates. It's $877,540 this year for the disposal, and that's 11,600 tons at $75.65 per ton. And then the weekly solid waste and recycling pickup, that total is $2.127 million. And then there's also the actual recycling processing. I'm sorry, there were 3 components to that budget. The recycling processing, which is $337,500 in the budget, the proposed budget. And that is based on a $90 per ton cost and an estimated 37,500 tons.
That's a lot of trash. So I think we had a discussion earlier this year to adopt an ordinance that was proposed several years ago. And the topic of renewing the contract with Waste Management came up. And just so everyone knows this, that our contract with Waste Management was just renewed for another 5 years. Is that correct?
Yeah.
This
Yes.
year? Okay. Any questions or comments from counselors? Lori had anything to add to this?
So traditionally with the trash fees, we've tried to keep the rate low and not make too many changes, but the cost of doing business and providing these services has increased and continues to increase given what is happening in the world at large, and the costs have increased in China. We expect that costs will continue to increase. So this rate increases does not cover all of the costs, and it's still mostly covered through the rate paying, or the tax rate. But this does help bear that burden a little bit.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from counselors? Seeing none, if any members of the public would like to speak in regards to the trash rate for FY21 or trash fees, you can click on the raise hand button or *9 if you're joining by phone. Felipe, I'm going to allow you to talk. You go first.
Hi, folks. Felipe Zamberlini here, 62 Perkins Street in the Point. I get the contractual obligations. I get that we renewed the contract already. But I gotta say, like, this company sucks. I'm not gonna mince words here. Waste management is not doing a good job for city of Salem. Our city's policies around trash collection are horrible. The idea that we have one-size-fits-all policies for neighborhoods that have tiny densities versus neighborhoods that have huge densities in comparison, like here in the Point, is outrageous. We have trash sitting in the sides of our streets on a regular basis. Trash that gets not collected, it gets left behind. The arms that they use for those machines drop trash everywhere. Recently, Waste Management has not provided PPE throughout this entire pandemic for their workers. We have not seen a single day of trash collection where workers had PPE. So at the end of the day, I get we've done all that, but I really want to highlight to this body that the policies that we're allowing to be in place for our trash collection are utterly broken. And if cost is an issue, then it might be time for us to talk to our neighbors about trying to do some kind of city compacts, where we work with our local neighbors and cities and towns around us and try to come up with a better strategy for trash collection for all of us. Because I got to tell you, this is not working for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Felipe. I'll just add that if anything comes up, like some of the concerns that you raised, I would encourage you to either email Bob McCarthy and copy Dave Knowlton if the C-click fix is not working. So hopefully that can get addressed that way. Next, we have Jeff Cohen. Jeff, you can unmute yourself. All right, there you go. Did I just mute you? Hang on. Jeff? Let's try this again.
Jeff Cohen, 12 Hancock Street. Before I get to what I wanted to ask, I do support one thing that Felipe said. I believe there should be a review in Salem about having the Point have 2 pickups a week. It has been considered in the past. It's never made it to the council. But density really does matter. As far as what was brought up before, my question is, does our contract have any language that says that if recycling processing rates go up, that we pay the relative percentage increase? Because I heard that it's because Chinese rates, but also heard that with the pandemic, that there's more trash. And, you know, I'm not sure there's a correlation there, but those are 2 different things. So if people could clarify whether the contract stipulates that Salem would have to pay a higher percentage just because Waste Management their fees go up. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any additional members of the public would like to testify around trash fees? Please raise your hand. Going once, going twice. I'll have Dave respond to some of the concerns, and Dave Knowlton, and address Jeff's question, if you could do that right now. So the concerns around waste management workers not wearing PPE and the frequency of pickups in the Point neighborhood. Can you speak to those?
Certainly. I'm surprised to hear that. We have close contact with Waste Management. We talk with their senior folks monthly, sometimes more than that. And they assured us that they were doing that. If that's not happening, I do need to know that, and I can bring that to their attention. The second collection in the Point is something that we've discussed before. It is a cost issue that we've just not been able to budget for at this point in time. And to Jeff's question about the unit prices, they are based on some indexes nationally that are established, and it absolutely, the costs for processing recycling have skyrocketed. It's $90 a ton is what we're budgeting right now, and for solid waste disposal, it's only $75 a ton. So it's more expensive to process recycling. So when those costs go up, we definitely are impacted by it. Conversely, if they went down, we would benefit from that, but we haven't seen anything go down in a while.
Thank you, Dave. Any additional comments or questions from councilors? Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just through you to Dave, just curious what the, it may not be in the budget this time around. I'm just curious what the actual cost would be for additional pickup at the Point on trash, because that is a common complaint in that neighborhood.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have those numbers with me. I can get those to you, Councilor.
Okay, thank you.
I just don't have them. I'm at home, so I don't have them with me. Sorry.
Got it.
I guess if I could add more to the Point conversation, it is a concern to the mayor and Councilor McCarthy about the condition of the Point with just trash everywhere. I'm not sure if the council is aware that we have tried to do some street sweeping, and in the Point area specifically, we blow trash off the sidewalks into the street, and we have a street sweeper come in and then pick the trash up that's there. We've not been able to, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to have an effective sweep out there because we're not ticketing and towing, requiring people to move their cars, just because that's an additional burden we didn't want to put on that community. So, we are, I'm working with Michaela, who's in my office. She's the recycling coordinator. And there's some larger buildings there in the Point that we need to reach out to, and whether they're on public pickup or doing their own private pickup, we need to reach out to them and try and start to have a conversation about how to keep control of the trash that just blows around. It is really, it's concerning. We need to do a better job, be more effective at it. But it starts with that effective sweeping that we do. Typically, we raise the number of times we're going to sweep to twice a month in the Point this year, but we just haven't had an effective sweep. I'm hoping that as we get into the later phases of opening up, then the state, then we'll be able to reissue the ticket and tow process, and I think that'll get us back to an effective cleanup of the entire area.
Councilor Hapworth, do you have a follow-up question?
And just while we're on the topic, thank you, Madam Chair. While we're on the topic, I think there was another concern on the Point also around dumpsters and standardizing on dumpsters. And I think you mentioned it, Dave, that there's some public and private concerns there. Have we explored a standardization around how large the dumpsters should be and what areas. I think it varies from building to building. I think that's part of the issue with seagulls and that kind of thing. Felipe actually shared a lot of those concerns with me, and he may be able to articulate those a little better than I can, but I know that's an additional concern they have in that neighborhood.
Yeah, we really haven't spent much time on that. We can certainly look at that. And I think that could be part of the process, the conversations with these, the property owners, just to make sure that the whatever size dumpster they use, it's in good condition. There's no holes in it. They get covered. The covers work, and they're covered all the time. That type of stuff to avoid animals, varmints getting in and taking the seagulls getting in and taking the trash out, or having it just blow out in the wind. I think that's part of the conversation we can have.
Are we able to standardize on a single company for dumpsters? Is that something we're legally able to do as a city?
I don't think so.
Okay. I think there was some mention that there was potentially either the entire city of Boston or one neighborhood that might have done something similar to that to deal with that problem. But I think that was a conversation I'd had with Felipe a few months back.
Okay. We can look into it and see if that makes sense.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know being a member of the committee, I was about to add some of the questions that I guess did, but I just wanted to ask David and maybe some of the administration, if there is any plan to deal with what we had in the point, which I think is not only piece by piece, need to be a comprehensive plan. There is any intention on the administration and you, David, to sit down with all of the parties that are going to bring some type of alleviation to the point. We have the most densely populated community, which is not only seeing one by item solution. I don't think that by having ticketing everyone in the street doesn't make any kind of difference. I think that we need to have a plan, comprehensive plan. We need to call the CDC to the table. We need to call the administration. We need to call City Council of Ward 1. We need to call all 4 City Council at large, make sure that we all together come with some type of solution. And we need to sit down and make sure that not only provide a solution on the trash, but on the density components, which include affordability, which include a lot of things that include work, job, and everything. So it is a plan that we need to face. And until we don't find something like that, nothing's going to happen on the point. We cannot expect, for example, people not to throw garbage in the street when you have overpopulated, dense community with no education whatsoever, no direction. We need to make sure that we understand that this is an issue that is going to be on and on and on, and will create another type of issue, social issue that we see nationwide, that if we don't do anything on now, we can face something soon in the point. So there is any intention on that, Dave, that you know, to have any comprehensive plan? Dave or Dominic?
Yeah. We are developing that now. We do have a list of the larger properties in the point, and we have names of contact people there. We are going to be reaching out to the CDC to also bring them to the table to start having this conversation about what we could do. You're right; it's a community thing. It's something that it's kind of pride in your community. We need to engage the residents there to kind of change their activities with and thoughts about trash to get the trash into the barrels and not on the street. But it is something that it's important to the mayor, and she's asked us to advance that. So we are doing that. It's going to take a little while, but we will be advancing that.
Thank you, Dave. I just want to remind members of councilors that we are talking about the trash fees and not specific trash policies. So I think if any councilors would like to bring that up for discussion before the city council, I think the Board of Health would be a good place to do that. And I agree that we need to figure out a way to solve this. I myself, even if the point is not, when the point is not in my ward, but I also hear about the same concerns. So I think perhaps it's good timing to bring this up with the Board of Health and talk about policies. Any further questions or comments from counselors? All right, I'll take a motion for trash fees. Councilor Marcelo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion to refer this out to the full committee with a positive recommendation.
Councilor Marcelo moves to refer the matter on trash fees to the full council with positive recommendation. Second by Councilor Presnewski. We'll do a roll call. Councilor Marcelo.
Yes.
Councilor Sargent has recused himself, and Councilor Presnewski.
Yes.
Councilor Madore, yes, and Councilor DeVos is absent. Matter on trash fees with the 3 councilors voting, 1 absent, 1 recused. The motion carries. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Lori, do you want to stay for the traffic changes?
Sure, I can stay.
Parking, traffic, okay. Next one, let's take up ordinance amending parking meters enforcement on Sundays. Dave Kucharski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as you might have seen in the cover letter from the mayor, there's 2 reasons really that we're looking at this time. The first is to obviously the revenues generated by doing enforcement on Sundays could help with the fiscal year budget coming up. In addition, we've heard anecdotally from businesses and others that currently having someone have the ability to park essentially on a Saturday afternoon, pay for a 4-hour max or 2-hour max, and then leave their car all day, in some cases until Monday morning, is not getting that turnover, not very friendly to visitors who are coming in. So I think all in all, this is a proposal to introduce enforcement at the meters from 12 in the afternoon to 6 p.m. As the council knows, I think it was back in 2018, Sunday and requiring parking on Sunday is currently allowed, enforced at the lots that have kiosks. And again, that's from noon to 6. However, it's free for residents and visitors have to pay. So we've worked with both Passport, that's the online app, as well as the kiosk operators. That is through registering your license plate, it knows who is a visitor and who's a resident. This wouldn't necessarily apply if we were to move forward with this, but there would still be options for residents to park for free in those specific lots. And again, it would only be from noon to 6 on Sundays.
Thank you, Dave. Any comments or questions from councilors? Councilor Dominguez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not being a member of the committee through you, I just want to ask David, by any chance, do we have any ball feel rate on how much going to be the revenue? And also, it's going to be, what is the cost involved into to have some numbers, some math?
So we did look at back in 2018 when rates were being evaluated to be raised, there was an analysis done. And based on that analysis, we're looking at an increase of $270,000 to $330,000 a year if we were to start enforcing at the on-street meters and the other lots that currently don't have kiosks. As far as costs associated, you're talking mainly for staff to enforce. Haven't gotten into those numbers at this point. We do still have part-time vacancies right now that we'd be looking, to fill to not only do these areas, but other residential parking permit areas as well. And actually, prior to the pandemic, I was looking to bring on a full-time person, but obviously that's changed given everything going on. But like I said, we still have some budget for part-time enforcement to come in and help, again, if this is approved.
Councilor Dominguez, you all set? Councilor Masillo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to David Kucharski. So I sent you an email a little while ago, pretty late, and my question was about sections 57A and 57C, which I
did
think
do that, Councilor. Yep.
I think that refers to unmetered zones and monthly parking.
Right. I think that the intent was to try to bring some consistency specifically in the downtown area where some of those zones might exist. Obviously, with the unmetered locations, in order for those to be enforced, they'd have to be some more observation and monitoring of that. With regard to the monthly zones, currently the only monthly zones that do exist are in Riley Plaza. There were some others that were designated, I believe, on Holyoke, as well as on Dodge, but with with ordinances passed, and I guess those weren't rescinded, they sort of are covering those with different regulations at this time. So I think, again, the intent was just to bring overall consistency with the Sunday enforcement with those. But I think the main focus, obviously, is on the metered parking.
Yeah, so do people park in Riley Plaza on Sunday using that monthly permit, or is it mostly a work type thing?
There are some residents on Norman Street who park there, but mainly I think it's just whoever gets a space, because obviously there is no enforcement. But there are during the week, certainly there are employers and employees who purchase passes that park there. And again, the folks the residents at the Norman Street development have them as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Przewinski, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for David Kucharski. David, are the hours of enforcement going to be the same as they are throughout the rest of the week?
I think we'd be looking to do noon to 6. As I mentioned, currently in the traffic ordinance, for lots that have kiosks, from noon to 6, visitors are required to pay, and where it's free for residents. We still ask that residents register their vehicles so that the enforcement would know the difference. But we're looking to mimic that, would be noon to 6. I think that the thought behind that is that we're not impacting any religious institutions and people going to services on Sunday morning. So that's where that's coming from.
Okay, will that be requiring hiring more staff?
I think, yes, like I said, we do have money in the budget, in my budget now, for a part-time person that we'd be looking to bring on to help with that, and then possibly moving some of our existing staff around. We currently have 3 full-time meter enforcement personnel as well as 1 part-time. So, but we haven't had those discussions at this time.
Okay, and thank you. And could I just make a suggestion while I have your ear, something to think about? I know that the meter persons that are around town, it's hard to distinguish them from regular civilians by their uniform. Some they don't appear to stand out. And my suggestion would be that if you issued them a traffic vest that said, meter enforcement, you'd be winning twofold. Number one, you'd be giving them the high visibility of the having a vest, and number 2, you'd also be giving them the high visibility for people seeing them, knowing that meters are being enforced, which would encourage people to feed the meters more. So that's just a suggestion. And when I see them walking around town, it's standing between the cars. Sometimes some of them look like a mechanic's uniform, not like somebody enforcing a city ordinance. Thank you, David.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for the suggestion.
I think it's a great idea too. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for Dave. So first, the question around additional staff to enforce parking meters on Sunday. I remember you mentioned that staff who work on weekends need to be paid time and a half. Did I remember that correctly?
There is a weekend fee that is applied to, yes, certain staff that do work on weekends, yes. I believe it's time and a half. It's a percentage. There's also a night differential as well, but I can get those numbers if you'd like.
Thank you. I think that this is a less painful way to increase parking revenue given our budget shortfall. But it would be really great to understand what kind of overtime pay would be needed for this. And then the second question is the projected revenue from this, from Sunday enforcement, is that based on a parking utilization rate? And what are the rates?
So we looked at sort of the annual and monthly revenue numbers from the past, and we broke them down into what were essentially hourly averages. And then we sort of tallied them up, adding what would be sort of the extra enforcement hours that would bring in. And that's sort of where the number came from. This was something that Nick had worked on when he worked with the commission to look at the overall rate changes that were done in 2018. I could get more details on that, but it was sort of taking a look at what has been done in the past and sort of moving that forward with looking at those hours of enforcement.
I guess maybe a better way to put my question is, are we being over optimistic with the projected revenue given that we do hope people return to downtown and park on Sundays, but if we say we're projecting this amount, I forget what the number you just quoted is, but are we kind of putting a number in there and expecting that to fill a budget gap but then in reality might not receive? So I don't want to be optimistic in the estimates and then have to cover the gap at the end of the year. So maybe Lori and Dave, you could help answer that.
Sure, I can say that our estimates for parking receipts were pretty conservative when putting together the budget, and they make up part of the expected shortfall. But it's too early to really say what those numbers are going to be because we really had no revenues for April and May for parking. And this week is the first week where we're starting to ticket again, and within the next few weeks we'll have a better sense of what that's going to look like. I think we all anticipate that number is going to be lower than it has been traditionally for this time of the year, but it's hard to say whether that expectation should be 50%, 75%, 25% lower. It's hard to say. For our projections, when we did the parking, I think we went with 50% of what our total revenue anticipated revenues were for this year in parking. And we'll be able to get a better sense over the course of the next 2 to 3 months before we're ready to set the tax rate as to where that number is really going to fall. Does that help answer your question?
Yes.
I think what Dave and I had worked on a while ago when we were just running some preliminary numbers before all of COVID-19 kicked in, we were looking at what the anticipated revenue would be if we brought on another person so that you would increase ticketing and bring in additional revenues. So you clearly make more money by having that extra person. And especially if you increase hours and weekends. But again, we're really going to have to monitor that closely and see what these additional hours are bringing in. If they're not warranting additional revenues and it's not offsetting creating additional revenue and it's causing us to lose money, then we may have to revisit that. But it's something that on a lot of our receipts, we're going to have to monitor pretty closely for the next 3 to 4 months, at least, until we even see what's going to happen in the fall with COVID-19. Hopefully it won't be the worst case scenario, but we don't really know.
Thank you. I don't know if that really answered my question, but I guess it's kind of, we'll see what we get, right?
Well, what is your question
I
specifically?
think Dominic wanted to add something.
Yeah, I know that the numbers are conservative, but if we say that the reason for enforcement on Sundays is to help cover the budget gap. But if in reality, the projected revenues based on previous, David, as you said, previous calculations, is going to give us a certain number. And if we use that number to help cover the budget gap, but we don't get that number in the end and perhaps lower, then is that something we need to be concerned about? Just trying to understand if this is justifiable as a budget gap measure. Dominic?
So the projection that was the $330,000 estimate was done in 2018 by Nick. We reduced that estimate to about 18% to the $270,000 figure. The budget, I think it's important to understand that the budget is, the budgetary reasons for doing this are secondary to the reasons of wanting to help the businesses downtown, where sometimes their own employees, sometimes downtown residents will take a space on a Saturday at 2 o'clock and keep it till Monday at 8 a.m. And right now we're pulling out a lot of stops to kind of help those businesses, and taking those parking spaces offline and not having them turn over during the high time of the weekends is certainly a challenge point in those efforts. So the budget goal is important. It's not the main impetus for doing it. And we did back down the projections based on kind of an expectation that parking revenues will probably be less. But if you've been downtown, and Councilor, I know you have been, I think most of you have been now at this point, there is a degree of activity that's starting to come back down there that we think that this will help with. It'll also help, offset any potential diminishment in our parking revenues for taking the spaces offline for the 15-minute restaurant pickups that we've had and the on-street restaurant seating areas that we've created. We're looking for ways to kind of mitigate the impact that we may end up seeing from that as well. So.
Okay, thank you. I guess that's what I needed to hear. I have one more question, and then I'll let Councilor Rosillo speak. The proposed amendment on the ordinance is to just remove on Sundays but if we're going to enforce it from noon to 6, where is that language for that particular rule? Because I don't see it. Because it would just be remove Sundays, but it doesn't specify the time.
I think that's something we could probably add. I believe 57B does reference that time when it's specific to Sundays on kiosks. So I could speak to the solicitor and get some language, to specify that those would be the hours of enforcement.
Councilor Marcelo, thank you. Councilor Marcelo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to go back to the Sunday hours from starting at noon, and it was mentioned that this would avoid people going to religious services. There is a mass, it looks like, at Immaculate Conception at noon, their Spanish mass. And so I'm wondering if we should look into the downtown places of worship just to make sure we're not hitting other services at that time, because I feel like that that's a problem.
Dave?
Well, we could certainly look into what are some of the activities going on Sunday and identify that.
Wait, can I ask, which church was that?
Immaculate
I
Conception.
see. All right. Do they have an off-street lot, Dave?
They might. I'd have to look.
I'll
Yes.
look it up.
I think they do have a lot. I don't know if it's, I mean, I don't know anything about it. I'm just saying if that's the position, is that we're avoiding services, that starts right at noon.
Thank you, Councilor Marcelo. I support the idea, but it would be hard in the consistency push for enforcement. Councilor Dominguez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not being a member of the committee, I totally agree with Councilor Marcelo. Happened that that's the church that I attend on Sunday. Is they have a private parking lot, which is very helpful. But there is some visitors coming all over the place, and sometimes they need to park everywhere because that's part of the services. So if something can be done in that, that's going to alleviate not only that church that it was referred, Councilor Marcelo, but other churches that congregate on the same area. But I also wanted to ask, through you, Madam Chair, to David, in the language that we proposing right now on that ordinance, it is any specification that the residents will not be charged any fee during Sunday? There's none. We are assuming that it's only going to be for the visitor. There's anything that say over there that all the residents of Salem, they are exempt to pay any fee during that time, or no?
There's nothing at that time because I don't know if that's necessarily feasible to do. The reason why we can do it in the lots with kiosks and with passport is we're able to have people register themselves and check. But if we were to do, we don't have that capability because we don't have the kiosks, and the smart meters don't even have that capability. So it would be difficult to sort of roll that out and be able to differentiate and have enforcement know who's a visitor and who's a resident.
But the residents are exempt.
It would be intended for anyone who parks there, resident or visitor, to have to pay.
So that's going to be a very...
Can I just clarify, Councilor?
Yeah.
So the kiosk lots would still be free for residents on Sundays between noon and 6. It would just be if a resident parked at a parking meter location during those times that they would have to pay.
Right.
But
So
if they went to the lot, it would continue to be.
So the Church Street lot would be free for residents. The Old Salem lot would be free for residents. The Universal Steel lot would be free for residents. The Crescent lot next to the MBTA garage would be free for residents on Sunday.
Councilor Dominguez, you all set? Councilor Sargent?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not supportive of charging on Sunday just because we've never done it before, and I just think it's good to give people a day off. But I also think you're being overly optimistic on the revenue projections, because I've seen it done in Salem, and I do it when I go to other towns. People from out of town come in and they put money in the meter because they're not sure if we charge on Sunday or not a lot. And when I go away and I don't know the rules and I'm not familiar, to put $1 in the meter is to me, way better than getting a ticket. So when I go to another town, if it's Sunday, I'll put money in the meter. So in that case, you get a lot of out-of-towners paying. And I think if you collected all the money from the meters on a Saturday night and then let it go Sunday and collect it on Sunday night, you see that there's a certain amount of revenue that we get anyways. So if we start charging, we're not going to get a full day's revenue because a lot of people from out of town already put money in the meters anyways. And just by the way it happened, the Salem people know about it and get it free, and many of the out-of-towners pay for it anyways. And we also don't have to pay for a meter person to go around enforcing because we're getting a lot of that money anyways, just because the out-of-towners don't always know what the rules are and they're just being careful. So that's, you know, I think the revenue projections are a little bit optimistic. I mean, overly optimistic because we're getting revenue on Sunday anyways. In essence, we're getting it for free. So, thank you.
Thank you. Davis, is there data that can prove that or show that behavior?
Well, we could certainly look at past revenue that's come in from Sundays, either people who have used the app to pay or the smart meters. The old style meters might be a little more difficult because we're not just collecting on specific days and knowing what happened on a Sunday. But we could take a look at those other data points to see, you know, if that is. Also, you know, if people are parking in these spaces for long periods of time, longer than the 2-hour or 4-hour periods, you will have less turnover. So, you know, you're not going to get any revenue at those particular spaces at all. Someone's just parking on Washington Street all day. So, just saying.
All right. Any further questions or comments on this from counselors? Seeing none, I'll turn it over to the public. If you would like to provide testimony on parking meter enforcement on Sundays, please raise your hand now. Jeff Cohen?
Jeff Cohen, 12 Hancock Street. When the blue laws changed, a lot of communities did try to accommodate businesses by opening up meters for Sunday. I think it's a good idea. I think Dominic had some great reasoning. You know, we obviously can't forecast during the pandemic what kind of revenue we'll realize, but there's already, you know, 12 or 14 restaurants with spots in front of them to enable them to hopefully stay in business. And I think this would be good for the future. When we, as a city, went to waste management and automatic trash pickup, we reduced the allowable amount of trash 40%, from 105 to 64 gallons per unit in Salem. And in the beginning, it was difficult. It was difficult for you know, homeowners and renters to get used to it, and it took a year or two for that to really happen. And it's fairly accepted in Salem right now. And I do believe that a lot of the businesses that we talk about in downtown Salem and other places are owned by Salem residents as well. So I think, although it may have a small impact during this budget issue, it may be something that we want to consider as a city going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, Councilor Marcelo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm still uncomfortable with the church issue. Is there a way we could provide cards or something that could be placed in the windshield of a car for the people that are at church? They pick it up at the church and come out and put it in their car, so that there's an indication that they're there for church and they'll be gone at 1 o'clock, as opposed to rewriting it to start at a different time or something like that. I just feel uncomfortable with this Spanish Mass, and they seem to be the only ones that I can find so far searching around downtown that would be hit by this.
We certainly can have a discussion with the church if that's something. We have found, though, when, at least I've seen in other places where you're doing this, some people start using them, abusing them. You can get some abuse. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but we can certainly talk to them and see if they have something specific to them that, you know, could be given to people who attend their services.
Thank you. Councilor Marcelo, you all set? Councilor Prosniewski, you had your hand up, I think?
Just a suggestion for the people at the IC, if the parking enforcement officer was, or officers were asked to ticket that last. In other words, leave that area by the IC alone between 12 and 1 o'clock or 12 and 1:30. That may help also with that.
Thank you. So I just looked at the ordinance on 57B, and I don't think the language on hours is clear enough to be applied to this. I don't want to vote to refer out just yet if we can't have clearer language in regards to the meters on Sundays. So I'll ask if other members of the committee agree that maybe we could hold this till the next standing committee meeting on the 25th. We'll wait for Dave to get back to us on specific language and perhaps some policy around the Immaculate Conception Church parking area. Councilor Wisniewski?
Just one more question for David. David, do you think that the revenue, through your experience, do you think that revenue would come more from ticketing or more from meters? Where would most of the money come in from?
I always try for compliance, so my hope is that we would get most of the revenue coming in from that. Again, I can take a look at the existing kiosk lots because technically visitors should be paying there and take a look, but we don't have as much enforcement going to those locations on Sunday at this time. So I can look at that and see how many people are paying and how much revenue is coming in. Obviously not during these past months, but prior, since it was voted in by the council.
Thank you.
Councilor Marcelo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion to keep this in committee.
Councilor Marcelo moves to keep this in committee. Any further discussion? Oh, Councilor Sargent seconds. Any further discussion? Actually, Dave, do you agree with my assessment that 57B is not very clear in regards to, so I'm reading it, it says Sunday noon to 6 p.m. parking shall be free on Sunday, and then period, and then parking shall be free on Sundays for Salem residents. So
I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but I wasn't involved in that, the drafting of that, so I'm not as familiar. I just know that what the timeframes were and what the intent was. But we could take a look at that if you're looking to clarify that as part of this. I don't know if you could bring it up on screen or.
Sure. Let's do that. This one. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, so parking area on which are kiosks or multi-space meters utilized for fees, including these lots, shall be enforced Monday through Sunday, 8 to 6, and on Sunday, noon to 6. And then it says free on Sundays for Salem residents.
Yep.
But that.
I mean, that's clear to me. It's indicating when enforcement shall take place. It's Monday through Saturday, 8 to 6, and Sundays, noon to 6, but it's indicating that for residents, it's free.
So this is for the lots.
Correct. The
Okay.
lots that have kiosks, only kiosks. So the Sewell lot it wouldn't apply to Sewell lot or Crombie or Riley Plaza. or the Front Street lot. So only those lots with kiosks.
Okay, so I'm correct in assuming that we need more language to say that the on-street meters on Sunday will be enforced from noon to 6. And that language is missing from the proposed changes.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so any further questions, Councilor Sargent? You're muted.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, just looking at the heading of that, it might be a simple fix. In essence, if you eliminated the second half of that sentence, off-street parking areas, parking time limited, and just eliminated off-street parking areas. Now the wording of that would give you the ability to charge out of towners, and it says in the text below that Salem residents are still free on Sundays based on their registration. So any person enforcing can do a quick check and see that it's a Salem registration and not ticket them. So we have the ability to charge out of towners or non-Salem residents on Sunday and not charge Salem residents just based on taking off the second half of the title of that 57B.
For off-street.
No, we take off the part that says off-street parking. Now it refers to all parking, all paid parking in Salem. And it still has in the text, Salem residents are free on Sunday. So a quick change of the heading may, Beth Bernard may want to look at it, but, it could be that taking the second half of that heading away allows us to charge any paid parking for non-Salem residents and still have Salem residents be free every place they would be charged in the city.
So I would just say that if we take that off, then resident parking would be free for on-street for every single day, and that would be a huge hit to the revenue.
No, it says Sundays. It says Salem residents free on Sundays. And down below in the text. So
that 50B is only applicable to those lots with kiosks. So
right. But we can make it applicable to every paid place in the city for Sunday because it has a Sunday clause, right?
I think I need to check with Beth Renard about that. And again, it'd be difficult to enforce.
Right. I thought we don't have the capability to do that.
Correct. Correct.
Dominic?
Well, it does say based on the registration. Somehow we must do the registration.
That's correct. That's the kiosk lot. So the on-street meters and the meters in the lots, we don't have the technical capability to know. So if somebody puts coins in the meter, the enforcement official doesn't know if that individual is a resident or not. And I think we would end up in a situation where we'd have a lot of residents getting tickets and getting upset and coming in to appeal them.
Right.
We also did not factor a free parking for residents on Sundays at meters into the revenue projections. So I think that would merit having to go back and figure out what that potential impact would be. But we can talk, Dave, we can work with Beth on some language around the hours, clarifying the hours for Sunday enforcement.
Thank you. Any further comments from councilors? All right, the motion from Councilor Marcelo is to keep this in committee, seconded by Councilor Sargent. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Councilor Marcelo?
Yes.
Councilor Sargent?
Yes.
Councilor Kwasniewski?
Yes.
Councilor Madore, yes, and Councilor Dipple absent. The motion carries. All right, thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Last item, inclusionary zoning. Is it Tom or Amanda that's presenting tonight?
I didn't prepare a presentation. I was just going to be available for questions.
Sure. I trust councilors have read through the ordinance. Or Amanda, can you just refresh our memory what the key takeaways are from the ordinance?
Yeah, so key takeaways are the threshold, which is important, that starts at 6 units. So that means any new development that's creating 6 new units is required to comply with this. It's citywide, so that means the entire city would be subject to inclusionary housing. And the threshold, so that six units is a requirement, and at that, a developer is required to set aside 10% of their units as affordable at 60% of the area median income, and there is no opt-out option. And so that means that the developer has to build the units on site. They cannot pay in lieu of the units, and they cannot build the units somewhere else in the city. And that is a very progressive ordinance. And there's a chart that you have that shows, other ordinances across, Massachusetts, and almost every other ordinance includes some provisions for opt-out because it's challenging for developers to get the project to pencil out if they don't have that flexibility. And so because of that, we included incentives. The incentives in the ordinance include a 25% density bonus, and that would be by right. It also includes waivers, and that's a parking reduction and setback waivers, but that's only by special permit from the planning board. And so it's not an automatic waiver. The developer would need to demonstrate that the project would work with fewer parking spaces and that there's not a constraint on setbacks. So there are things that would need to occur for those special conditions to be met. So that's really the gist of it. It's for both ownership and rental. And that's another really progressive thing about this ordinance. Many other communities require deeper levels of affordability for rental, but then ownership let the affordability be higher, let's say 80%, or in some communities, they actually go up to 100% area median income for ownership units, because it's just a lot harder to pencil out, and that's to get the finances for a project to work for ownership. But again, because of these incentives, we feel that we're confident that we'll be able to make the 10% at 60% work. And that's based on an in-depth financial analysis that was conducted through MAPC.
Thank you, Amanda. Any questions or comments from councilors? Let's see those hands. Councilor Riccardi.
I'll start off. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess this question would be for either Amanda or really, it's been in production for a while. Great. I think this is really well written. I had a question on the fractions section. So this just kind of stuck out at me when I was reading it, because I do think it's kind of a loophole now where it's just there's really no rounding requirements, or it's kind of a little fuzzy math we have going on. So I do like that there's the fraction requirement in there. So the example that's given though, for a 12 unit project would require 1.2 affordable units, so 10% of 12. The last 0.2% unit, the fraction, could be satisfied by providing an additional unit for a total of 2, or through a cash payment equivalent of 0.2 units. So I'm just curious how you came to that conclusion as that being, the correct way to work with the fractions, because to me, the 0.2 does not equal a full affordable unit, and who would go that route really?
Yeah, we had a lot of discussion with our inclusionary housing subcommittee on this and how we handle the fractions. And what we assume will most likely happen is under 0.5, most developers will probably opt for the cash payment. and over 0.5, they might opt to pay for, they might opt to build the unit. Maybe not. I think most likely with the fractions, you'll be getting payments, but we didn't want to make the project, we didn't want to render the project undevelopable, to not feasible to finance. And again, to make just one more affordable unit, it hurts the pro forma. And so this was a way to help just get the numbers to work, and we might get a little bit benefit on the side with these small cash payments, or we might even get a unit out of it. But that's how we got to the fraction of 20% is not intended to pay for the full unit. It's just intended to make sure that, in some towns and cities, when they round up, what you'll see is developments coming in at just below that rounding. So you end up with, 0.4. It always ends up at that 0.4, and that's intentional. And it'll be the same developer with 4 houses on the same block. And we wanted to avoid that from happening.
If I could just have one follow-up to that. Could you tell me a little bit about the fund? I think perhaps as a newbie, I might not know where that cash goes or what it's used for.
Yeah, the money would go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. And it has to be, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board by statute and by ordinance has to be used for affordable housing. Right now, the trust has some money, not a whole lot. It's about $6,000 in there. But the trust would use that money to, in various ways, to invest in affordable housing. Currently, they're using the funds they have to study public land. There are some trusts in the state that use money to kick into development projects to affordable housing. They'll send it to North Shore CDCs, and they, put out RFPs for that money. We just don't have enough money in the Salem Housing Trust to do that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Councilor Kwasniewski.
Amanda, would you be so kind to explain to me, and maybe more importantly, and members of the public, how does the 25% density bonus work exactly?
Yeah, so do that with sort of simple math. And there's the amount of units that are allowed to be developed based on the size of the property, and it depends on the zoning. But let's say, for example, a property is allowed to build 100 units by the underlying zoning, because that's what the size of the property would render. The density bonus would allow them to build 125 units. So it gives you 25 units over what would normally be allowed. Does that help?
I'm trying to, you're allowed 100 units on that lot by zoning, but the bonus to the developer is he gets to build another 25 more units. So what does that gives us, that extra affordable housing fraction? Is that what the reasoning is behind this?
The reasoning for the density bonus is to help offset the cost that the developer takes on in building the in selling the affordable unit to renting them for a lower price than the market rate units. Because it costs as much to build an affordable unit as a market rate unit, but there's a very significant differential in what they'll take back is what they earn from that unit. And so to make up that cost, the more units you have, the smaller that gap gets. And those margins need to be within what a financer or a lender will provide. So there are certain requirements that banks have and what that gap is, and that 25% helps fill that. It does help with the affordable units in the sense that the 10% is calculated on the top number. So 125 units requires 12.5 affordable units. Now, there are a lot of communities that do the calculation based on the lower number on the 100, but Salem opted to do the higher number because with the 25% density bonus, the performers show that could work.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Amanda. I know I've seen this or I've heard it. I just can't see it in the ordinance right now. Is this applicable to all units built by a single developer in a year? So if somebody builds, say 5 or 6 units, is that total amount, or 5 or 6 different developments throughout a calendar month? Is that total amount incorporated into what they would need to contribute for affordable housing?
No, it's based on development, not by developer. And so we do have language in here that discusses if you have a subdivision or a sort of a pieced out project and let's say a phased project where one building will be built this year, the next building built in phase 2, the whole project would have to comply, but it's not by developer.
Okay, so something like say, for instance, like Strong Water Crossing, where it's multiple homes, are they contributing affordability based on how much they build, or would a building like that, because it's generally single family, would that not be counted towards? Yeah.
Yeah, if this project, if Strong Water Crossing had come in after this ordinance is adopted, the affordability would be based in it. The inclusionary zoning is applicable to single family homes and to subdivisions. And if Strong Water Crossing had come in after this was adopted, then the entire project, we would use the big number to identify the affordable units. So even though that's a phased project, that's 5 or 6 phases, what we would do is in the ordinance, it says how we handle the affordable units, and I believe it's every 5 market rate units, you have to build one of the affordable units. And so you can't build all the market rate units and then wait to do the affordable units in phase 5. It has to be proportionate. So I think there are 130 single family homes there. I don't recall, but that means it would be 13 affordable units.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Sargent.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, thank you. To Amanda and everyone, the 25% bonus is not just a density bonus. That allows, it's a parking bonus. It allows a height bonus to allow another story. It allows a lot size bonus, and it allows setback bonuses. So there's a lot of bonuses going on there. And with all these bonuses, we're still asking for 10%. And what I don't get with the 10% is that throughout the history of Salem, with all the building, we've been able to achieve 12.5% affordable housing without any ordinance, just by doing it by the planning board, by being proactive. And so now going forward, we're only going to go for ask for 10%. So we're actually stepping down from what we already have. Now moving forward with that is I just want to tout the difference between by right versus not by right, and what you get with these bonuses. I mean, let's look at South Campus, for instance. If you were to build that by right, it's about 30 acres. You could build 90 one-family homes in that zone. And you were such a developer, you would give 10%. So you'd have 9 would be affordable. And so that's asking for 10%, somebody building by right. I think that's a pretty good deal, 10% when they're building by right. But I still believe that when you're giving something and you get a bonus, you should give back more to the city, because the city is giving you more and we need more. So with the municipal religious adaptive reuse, that same 30 or so acres on South Campus at Salem State University, you can now build 300 or 400 units. So that's a lot more than the by right 90 units or so, and rough figures. But if you could build 400 units there with the adaptive reuse, now you give 10%. Now you're allowed to build 100 more, and still you're only given 10%. So you could end up with 500 units in a place where by zoning, you could only build 90. So you're being given that adaptive reuse by the city, or anything else you're being given, and you're building about 400 extra units. I mean, that's a huge profit to a developer. And I really believe that we should be asking for more when we give more like that. A project like that should be giving us at least 15% affordable. So how can the numbers not work if they can build 90 one-family homes by right and make a profit, and then build 400 or 500 with the municipal adaptive reuse and not give us more? I just don't see how all those figures can work. So thank you. I know it's a lot to take in, but thank you.
Amanda?
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot to unpack there. So I'll start with the 10% and what the city gets for it. And the city, we are getting something for it, and it's pretty significant that the city would be getting 10% of units at 60% of the area median income. That's the big get there, is that you're getting that deeper level of affordability. And so that's really important to remember. You could increase that amount to 15%, but we would have to increase the affordability level to 80%. And that's not what the community has told us that that they want. And it's not what the data shows, and what Salem community members earn is what's needed. And so we really want to focus on that 60%. That's that sweet spot. In terms of the adaptive reuse permit, I will just want to clarify that that's only applicable to buildings, to existing buildings. And so if a building meets the criteria, and there are significant, quite a few criteria things they have to meet, including being used as a religious or municipal building within a certain time frame for a certain amount of years, then that building itself can be reused. And there are a lot of constraints with reusing an existing building. To say that there are going to be 300 units in one of those buildings, I think that would be incredibly challenging to make work. I don't know what kind of buildings that South Campus could support if it would be eligible for the special reuse permit, but it seems like a lot. I'm not sure that would work. So I think there was a couple other things, and I might be missing them.
Tom?
Thank you. Thank you, Council Chair. And just to add on to what Amanda was saying, I think, regarding South Campus itself, the ability of that property to take advantage of the municipal special permit is quite limited in terms of time. I believe it's next year where that sunsets. I just wanted to comment on the other question that was raised about the overall affordability level and how that number was achieved, the 12.5%. So I think, as everyone is aware, in recent years, the planning board for new projects has been requiring 10% at 80% because there is no requirement. So that's been something that's been put in as a requirement through the permitting process. There are other properties, such as things that Harbor Light and North Shore CDC have provided, that go into that 12.5%. There's also other projects that were permitted many, many years ago with state housing financing bonds that were done that had requirements of 25% being affordable. And in fact, those projects, although 25% were required, 25% of the units were required to be affordable, actually all of the units get to be counted towards the number that the state tracks. So there's the number, the 12.5, which is the state housing inventory percentage that is officially what DHCD has for Salem has different types of inputs into calculating that number, and is different from what we're talking about here with the 10% that is being proposed to be required of private sector projects to provide these affordable units.
Thank you, Tom and Amanda. Councilor Sargent?
Unmute. Can you hear me? It says unmute. I just want. Am I all set?
Yes.
Yeah, see, and I understand to a point building costs. Of course, I don't understand the whole picture, but you just make a comparison as if you take a municipal religious, adaptive reuse for the old Immaculate Conception School and the old St. James School, the developers here, from what I hear now, are making those all affordable. Like the Salem Harbor CDC and Mickey Knox, they take a project and make it all affordable. And that's, of course, that's way more than 10%, that's 100%. And they have to be using builders that are similar to the ones that the people that are given 10% affordable building. So they're paying about the same price to build a unit, and they're making it all affordable. But somehow we're only able to get 10%. And I can understand 10% when a project's built by right. But when we're given zoning changes and special permits and, density bonuses, I really, I just can't help but think that we should get more in return. So I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Can I just respond to that comment and say, well, could you be more specific about what you would like to see more of? Because the 12.4%, I believe, that Salem has as affordable housing, that's not a static number. That number changes every year informally. And every time we take a census every 10 years, we know that there are more homes built and the denominator gets bigger. So that 12% might actually be below 10% now because we haven't caught up with building more affordable housing. We don't require developers to do that, especially at 60% of area median income. So if you're looking to get more, can you be more specific on what you're looking for? So maybe we can discuss how we can incorporate that rather than just in general saying that we want to see more. That would be helpful.
Says unmute again. I used the last official stats on the Massachusetts website, and that's the best you can do as far as official numbers you can find, and it can be getting lower. And we need more affordable because we need more affordable, but we need more affordable because we don't want to fall below 10%, because then we could have to take on a 40B project similar to what Peabody has to do with the old J.B. Thomas Hospital, and there's some controversy with that kind of project. It works tight in the neighborhood. But I've said over and over again that I think we should give 10% if they're developing by right. And when we give them more, I look for 15%, but somewhere between 10 and 15%, even if it goes down to 14 or 12.5 where we're at now. But I always felt that they should give 10% if they're building by right and 15% if they're getting help from the city, with the idea that we're giving them more. They're able to build more, they're able to make more profit, and they should give more back to the people of Salem. So that's how I feel. Thank you.
So, Councilor, are you saying that if the developer chooses to take advantage of a 25% density bonus, that they should provide 15% affordable units as part of the project? Is that what you're saying?
That's why I don't believe in the bonus per se with all that goes on with it. What I believe is a project that's being built without the bonus. For instance, if whatever they could build at South Campus of Salem State is going to be more than what would be allowed under current R1 zoning. So they're getting a deal just by building whatever we allow them to build without a bonus on that property. And I believe because of that, they should give, because of them taking advantage of the municipal adaptive reuse, they should give 15%. If there was vacant land and a developer was coming in and it was 30 acres, 3 houses per acre under R1 zone, and they could build 90 houses by right, okay, 10%, understood. But even that developer that comes in and builds by right, it must feel a little bit slighted because someone else might come in and be able to build a lot more units by an adaptive reuse or some other special permit, and they only have to give 10%. So a developer building by right can say, hey, why do I have to give 10%? I'm not getting any special deals from the city. but this person can build twice as many units or 3 times as many units because they're getting a deal from the city by some kind of zoning or other relief. Why don't they have to give more? So I always felt like on something that you're using it, before we even talk about density bonuses, when you're allowed to build more than you would by right, then you should get 15%.
Okay, that's very clear. So I don't want to get off topic and talk about the reuse overlay or reuse special permit.
Right.
But if you feel that there needs that or ordinance needs to be amended to require more affordability, I think that's worth exploring or proposing. But right now we're just talking about inclusionary zoning.
Right, and I say inclusionary zoning can be amended to say when you're allowed to build by right, you give us 10% affordable housing. When it's not a by right project that's taken advantage of different programs in the city to allow more density, then you give us more in return. You give us 15%. That's what I'm getting at with this ordinance.
And I welcome specific language on adding to this ordinance about what the special permit idea that you're discussing.
And I do. Section 5.4.3, mandatory provisions of affordable housing. Change section 1-A to add at the end of the period for development built by right period. Then add that's 10%, and it ends with, as it is now, for developments built by right would be added on there. Then add a second line, 15% of the unit shall be affordable to households with incomes at or below 60% of AMI when a development is not built by right. So it's just a second line in section 5.4.3.
5.4.3.
Yeah, you just add a second line there. So that's, I can say that again later, but that's language that I've thought about. Could I lose you?
No, I'm looking at the language. I'm trying to find what second line you're talking about.
5.4.3, mandatory provisions of affordable units. Number 1, affordable housing requirement. Section A, in any development subject to this section, 10% of the dwelling unit shall be affordable to households with incomes at or below 60% of AMI. At the end of that, take away that period, then add for developments that are built by right. Then add a second line, 15% of the unit shall be affordable to households with incomes at or below 60% of AMI when a development is not built by right.
Oh, I see. So you're proposing to add a new section.
Right. Now, section 1A will have 2 parts. 10% of built by right, 15% of if not built by right.
So it would be 1A, 1B. So it would be an additional section. It would be A, B, C, and D. So B would be the special permit. That's clearer, right?
All right, we could make it 1A, 1-A, section 1, 1-A, section 2, and go on to B and C. Just to be 2 parts of section 1A. One based on built by right, the second one not built by right. And we could also, we wouldn't amend that to pass tonight. It would have to, I would suggest that it be run by the city solicitor to make sure that it passes muster. I'm not in that much of a hurry that I want to take a chance of making a mistake.
Tom and Amanda, any thoughts on this recommendation? Amanda?
Yeah. So earlier today, I was on a call with some folks from the Urban Land Institute discussing other projects, but they brought up an example, and I forget the city, I think maybe it was Berkeley, but it's a community in Massachusetts, in California, it could have been Berkeley, California, that has had an inclusionary zoning ordinance on the books since the early 90s and have not built a single affordable unit since it's been on the books. And that's because the requirements were so strict and the incentives were so They just weren't there to make the development work. And that's something that we really want to make sure does not happen here. We were really careful with the numbers. We didn't just pick 10% of the units at 60% area median income and then a 25% density bonus without carefully calibrating that. So if you require 15% of the units to be affordable at 60% area median income, you're risking development not happen in Salem. Developers may say, we're going to take our project elsewhere and just not build here. And I think that I would recommend not doing that because it's a really risky move when we have data that demonstrates to us that to make this work, you would have to provide 10% of the units at 60% area median income with a 25% density bonus by right. If it's not by right, and it requires a special permit or it requires some other process for the developer, then it's not a true incentive. And that's risk that the developer takes on. And again, less likely for them to build a project.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add as well that to the level of analysis that's been done in crafting this ordinance is significant. And going back, as I was saying, the planning board has been saying 10% of the units at 80% area median income. And the task force working on the inclusionary zoning ordinance, there was this question about, well, do we look at 15% of the units at 80%, or do we look at 10% of the units at 60% area median income? And it was trying to find, there needs to be that balance. And so right now, the market is working to where we're able to say, 10% at 80%. That's working. Developers are able to make that work generally. It's harder on the ownership ones. But if we're trying to meet the need in Salem of 60% AMI, the number just doesn't work. And so that's where these incentives come from. It's not that there's a special permit that's needed. It's just the numbers don't work. And so then you end up with zero affordable units because the numbers aren't there.
Thank you. Councilor Sargent?
Thank you also. Again, you see where people will come in other towns and sometimes in our towns and take an old school and turn it into a 100% affordable housing. Swampscott just did one for senior housing. We're doing the old St. James and the old Immaculate Conception Church with the adaptive reuse ordinance. And they're able to make it work. And the Salem Harbor CDC down the point is able to make projects work that are 100% affordable. But then developers could come in and take the same building or the same project, and they can only afford to make it 10% affordable and not give us 15% when we're getting a special deal, and then want a density bonus of 20%, 25% on top of that. So that's, I'm just trying to reconcile the difference between those types of projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And I think those projects that you just mentioned, they were able to, as you said, make it work because they have to line up for 2 or more years for subsidies from the state and federal government to make it work. Whereas developers who are not doing 100% affordable, they still have to line up for subsidies. So it's a completely different ballgame for what the CDC is working on. And they are a nonprofit, so they have to find the money elsewhere. That's why they're able to get the 100% affordability. Tom, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. That was the comment I was going to make. That just to restate, it's the market, the private market will provide a certain number of units at a certain cost. That's what the market will do. The CDC and Harbor Light, they're providing something that the market isn't going to provide, and that's affordable housing. And so they're getting public subsidy in the form of low-income housing tax credits at the state level. They get foundation resources. They get money from the city. So it's all this public money that's going in to create affordable housing because the private market's not providing that. There's a market failure there. So that's one way to build affordable housing because you get those low-income housing tax credits, you get those foundation dollars, you get city money, and you can build affordable housing that way. The inclusionary tool is trying to leverage the private market to bring those affordable units. And again, there's a market failure, and when the market failure is there needs to be a public intervention. So rather than cash going into the project, the public participation is through these incentives of the density bonus and the parking relief to help the numbers work that way. So that's what it comes down to.
All right. Well, thank you. And the developers also get benefit of some of the things like we just passed our HDIP, the Housing Development Incentive Plan, that allows them to get different credits from the state and the federal government. So private developers may not be able to get as much as the nonprofits, but there's a lot of programs out there for them to use to help provide affordable housing, and sometimes they get the reimbursements after the project's over. So they're on. I haven't seen, and I don't begrudge developers making money. That's what they do, and whether I supported a project or not, when it goes forward, you wish for people to succeed. But I haven't seen a project go south in Salem in a long, long time since we had the condo market fallout in the 1980s. So the developers are doing pretty good in Salem, and we're helping them. And I still think they should help us a little bit more in return. So I'll yield at that. Thank you.
Yeah, you wanted to add something? You had your hand raised. You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to expand a little bit on that, on how the North Shore CDC is building their 100% affordable units. Just to clarify that, they do use low-income housing tax credits. And at the last Affordable Housing Trust Fund board meeting on June 2nd, Mickey Northcott gave a presentation of the projects that the North Shore CDC is working on. And I have, the minutes are posted online, the draft minutes, but I just want to read this one excerpt from him because I think it really clarifies why every project could not use that funding stream. What Mickey said was, for projects like the schools, and that's talking about St. James and Immaculate Conception, the Department of Housing and Community Development, that's DHCD at the state, only accepts projects once a year, and they only consider one project per developer per community. So the notion that we could have 3 developers doing what the North Shore CDC does is just not realistic. They're using a very specific funding stream, and other developers, if they were to also use low-income housing tax credits, it would be competing. And as Tom mentioned, I mean, there are different ways that market rate developers participate versus nonprofit, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Councilor Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we member of the committee. I totally get the picture on all the explanation on regard to private and public and all that matter. And I think it's very clear, but I think that the point Councilor Sargent is trying to make is legit. If we see the history of Salem, I feel that the result kind of told very loud and clear that for some reason, there is a group of people who are afraid to negotiate with the private sector. We understand that they are here for business, but when you sit down at the table for business, you need to know what you have versus what they have. I know the developer might be lost in some point or another, but at the end of the day, the city needs to be stronger enough to negotiate a better deal. Because so far, I don't think that the deal is being balanced. It's only in one way. It's only been on the developer side, and the results are there. We see so many luxury apartments being built. We complain and we say we had a crisis. But at the end of the day, when we had to sit down with the developers, we cannot force them put a bigger share to make sure that they alleviate the situation. We try to go by the book, and we're saying, okay, they cannot be pushed so hard because they can move away. If you are a negotiator, you have to be able to get the best deal or at least balance the field. At this point, it's not balanced. It's more developers than the regular residents components that we need to see more result. We don't see that on the table. Every time we see an explanation, it's always on the developer side. And that's at least the perception that the general public have. We need to start to bring a better negotiation deal to the table to help at least balance the situation that we have in Salem in regard to housing. If we're not gonna have those two completely balanced out, it's gonna be only one way. And at the end of the day, we don't want to see no result. We're going to continue to be saying that we had a crisis. The crisis is going to be deeply and deeply and deeply, and people are going to continue to move away, and nothing's going to happen. So I totally agree with Councilor Sargent. We need to ask for more. We understand that it might be a risk that they might move away, but don't lose the sight that Salem is very attractive to any developer, for many reasons. So if that one need to move away because they're not willing to put the fair share on the table, let's move to the other one. And we will find some other solution. We're gonna find some other people who might be able to build. But we need to negotiate strongly. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I would just say that I sat in those Affordable Housing Trust Committee meetings with you, and we had developers at the table, and we talked about these numbers. And I will also say that if these negotiations, as you pointed out, have worked, then we wouldn't have a housing crisis. So I'm actually not interested in negotiating more. I just want a law that says we require you to do this. There's no negotiation. Because right now we don't have anything that requires them to do it. So rather than finding kind of find a way to negotiate, we just need to say you have to do this, because right now we have nothing. We asked the planning board to provide, the planning board asked the developers to provide 10% at 80% AMI, and we know that that's not affordable to Salem residents. This ordinance is asking for 60% AMI, but without adopting it, we cannot require that. We could just stay at 80% AMI, which is Boston income. So I think the point about negotiating is fair, but I'm kind of tired of negotiating. I just want developers to do this. We just have to require them to do it because they're not doing it. Nobody's providing 60% AMI units right now because they don't have to. And it doesn't help Salem residents. So I think we can take a really strong step and say, you have to do this, and the ordinance will allow us to do that. Amanda, you had your hand up?
Well, I did want to clarify that it's not just the developer who we talk to, or developers. We also talk to financial institutions who play a big part of this equation. It's very rare for a developer to start a development project with just cash, with money in their pocket. They have to go to a lender to back their projects, to finance it. And a lender will not back that project if they're not going to see specific returns. And if those returns are too narrow, then they will not have the money to build the project. So it's not that we'll find other people to build in Salem. Lenders won't provide funds to builders to be able to build in Salem. And so that's one of the key concerns that we have with increasing the number beyond what would render the project financially feasible.
Thank you. Any other councilors have comments? No questions? All right, I'll open up to the public. Oh, Councilor Sargent, go ahead. Can you unmute yourself?
Again, yeah, I think 10% is too low for affordable units, and I think 25% bonus is way too high. And if we had to give a 25% bonus, more than 10% of that 25 bonus should be affordable, because that's extra on top of that. But I'll yield to the public. Thank you.
Councilor Marcello.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I mean, the planning department has said that they have talked to financial people, they have talked to developers, they've talked to different experts along the way. And I've heard from 2 counselors right now that they think that this can be better. Can you please back this up? Can you tell us about the numbers that you've looked at? How can we do this at a bigger percentage? What is this feeling based on? And really material basic information that you're using, that you're throwing out. I would like to see a higher percentage also, but I also want to see 60% AMI. I really want that more deeply affordable unit to be created in Salem. And this is a huge expense to the developer, and they can show you this, and the financial people can explain this to you. And so I really would like something backed up by your feelings about this percentage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And I would just add that we're focusing on the number of units, which is great, but we keep forgetting that this is for folks who make 60% of area median income. I think that's the most important part, is that this is deeper affordability, that the rents are cheaper, the mortgage is lower. That's where the affordability comes from. It's not really just the number of units that we're talking about. Because right now, the affordable units are at 80% AMI, and that's Boston income. It's not Salem income. So I hope we don't lose sight of that. All right, members of the public. I just muted myself. Members of public, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. I don't see anyone join my phone, so. All right, we have 2, 3. Let's start with Jen Lynch.
Hi there, how are you guys? Can you hear me okay? All right. I had the very good fortune of sitting in on all of the MAPC meetings with Amanda and Tom and others when we were hashing through the inclusionary zoning ordinance that sits before you. Domingo, you were there as well. So I'm quite surprised.
Jen, sorry to interrupt you, but please address your comments to the chair. And
oh, yes, I'm sorry. Sorry, yes, of course.
Thank you.
While sitting on in the meetings, there was a great deal of discussion and debate about all of the things that are being raised here. And I know that I went in quite bulldoggish, wanted to see everything free for everybody, and playing with the numbers, seeing what the developers were up against, understanding the levels of affordability that were necessary for our city. I think that this is a really fantastic ordinance. I think it covers, it gives a measure of protection against the ever-increasing market rate, and I think that it does fill a need by expanding housing stock across all levels. We can't rely 100% on private developers to solve our housing crisis. But this definitely does provide a level of protection against things growing out of proportion with regards to affordability. So that was me speaking. I also want to remind everybody that the League of Women Voters has submitted a strong letter in support of this ordinance, and we stand by it. So I really hope that this gets voted favorably out of committee tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jen. Next, we have Judith Riley. Judith, you have an older version of Zoom, so I have to promote you to panelist. 1 second. Please remember to update Zoom next time.
Maybe it's because I have a Chromebook, but I think I'm updated. I just wanted to say as an individual that I support this ordinance. I think it does the best that we can do given the numbers when we're dealing with private developers. Yes, obviously I'd like to see deeper discounts available, deeper subsidies in public housing, but I do support this particular ordinance when it comes to private development. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Trying to figure out how to remove you. I don't want to kick you out, but here we go. Next we have Jeff Cohen.
Jeff Cohen, 12 Hancock Street. I do agree with Councilor Dominguez that we have a housing crisis. However, timing is important. We should have passed something like this 3 years ago. There have been thousands of units built or in process, shovel ready or final paint being done that don't really have what we would consider affordability. I want to really commend Councilor Morcillo for her comment. I was at all the meetings the MAPC and planning had, and I think the detail, we all want to have a higher percentage of units and a lower percentage of affordability. However, if you feel that something better can happen, I would encourage Councilors Dominguez, Sargent, whoever, to find a developer, one developer, and one financial institution, perhaps a bank or a lending house, to submit their names on a project that they would commit to. It's going to be 25 units, 75 units, 13 units, and this developer will do it, and this bank will finance it. And then we can go forward, because otherwise, tomorrow is too late. Inaction is action. Just pass this thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Next, we have Lori Stewart. Oh, there we go.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say that I support this ordinance. Many of you know that I lived in public housing for 15 years, so I really understand what it's like to live in Salem and not have enough money. I think it's good that we're asking for, through the planning board, for people to build 10% of their units at 80% of the AMI. But I just want to tell you, from someone who's known what it's like to live in extremely low income housing, how important it is to get the 60% of the area median income target that we want. It's something that's going to really be a big boon to Salem, and it will make a lot of difference to people who don't have as much money. And I am support of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Any additional members of the public want to speak? Please raise your hand. Oh, we have three more. We have Flora Tontat. Go ahead.
Hi, Flora Tontat, 30 Northeast Street. I really appreciate Councilor Marcella's question, and I really want to hear from Councilor Sargent and Councilor Dominguez response to her question. How can they give her some concrete examples or data or anything to support the financing and you know, because everybody wants to see the deeper housing affordability. So please give them that opportunity to answer her question. I would love to hear the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Flora. Next we have, Elite B. Samberlini.
It's me again, 62 Perkins Street. Just want to put something to perspective. Buildings that are being built at 80% AMI, that has already been mentioned several times here, are not meeting the needs of people in Salem. And part of the reason that's the case is that the incomes of people in Salem are lower than in the greater Boston area, which is the area in which we are within, whether people like that or not. So let me just paint a picture of what it means to have 60% AMI. 60% AMI for one person is $47,600. Okay, that translates to $22.88 an hour for a full-time, year-round, 40 hours a week job. For a family of two, for a single person working in a family of two and the other person not working, well, just generally that translates to $54,400 a year. That means you got to make $26.50 an hour. These are not bad jobs, but we know that that's not what people are accessing right now. We know that the incomes of Massachusetts workers are stagnating, have not increased in the rate of the economy, and that the wealthy are doing way better off than anyone else in society. Let me tell you this, for a family of three, which is the average family in Massachusetts, it translates to $61,200. $61,000 sounds to some people like a lot, but I can tell you that I have not been able to pay rent at $61,000 in a family of three. I can tell you that I've been in a family of three at 60% AMI, and it is not a fun feeling to, at the end of the day, pay 50% of my income towards rent because there is no apartment in the area that is income restricted. I've experienced that. It is not a fun feeling at all. It is being suffocated by housing. Right now, Salem does not have in its books the ability to set the negotiating power of any sorts to create affordable housing outside of hoping and praying that there will be charitable enough systems in place for the nonprofit sector to do something. Until the federal government and until the state government step up and begin investing once again in housing, which they are not, and frankly, I don't think I can see that happening anytime soon, the only way to build is either through the good faith effort of nonprofit organizations or through private developers. The nonprofit organizations are doing good work, but they can't be the only ones doing it. They are not capable of building alone all the housing that the city of Salem needs. So for the folks that are just barely making it, this ordinance is necessary. And I get it. I frankly would love to be able to see 100% affordable in every construction. I'd love to be able to see us properly utilizing public land, the state better utilizing state land, but that's just not happening. So at the end of the day, let's be real, in a family of three or possibly a family of four, two people are working at least. And so that's an income of $14 an hour or $16 an hour. That's who you're talking about here. This isn't just a matter of numbers of housing units being built or numbers of benefits of setback and whether the balance works or it does not work. At the end of the day, I'm talking about people that are barely making a living right now in our society. And oftentimes we're talking about households that one member of the family might have a decent job and the other has another part-time job or a second part-time job and a third part-time job just to make ends meet. And this is really, really basic. The math makes sense for private developers to be able to come in and really do what they want to do, which is build, make their profit, which, from my perspective, screw them, but that's the only system available to us. We cannot rely on the nonprofit sector to build all of our housing without federal or state investment. And I mean major investments in the trillions of dollars. That is not going to happen right now or anytime soon. So right now, when I look at this policy, I'm not thinking about how many units this is going to build. I'm thinking about the $14 an hour workers, the $16 an hour workers, the people that are earning below living wages, who are actually going to be able to find housing. That right now they are struggling and being crushed by two rocks, the rock of high rent and a rock of wages that are too stagnant and not growing quick enough. So this is a simple policy. This is basic. When I look at it, I've read the whole thing and it's pretty simple. And it's actually one of the best ones in the region at that 10% of 60% affordability. So when you think about these numbers, don't forget that 60 AMI, while it's, a really easy number to forget and get, really stuck on the jargon, it really means people that are struggling to live and survive today. So please do move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Loopy. Next we have Fuzzy. Fawaz Abushak, I mean.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, finally. I just want to start by, we're talking about the 60% like it's an accomplishment. It's not. This is what Salem, even at 60%, it's not really that affordable to many. So 10% at 60 is good, but I think we shouldn't even look at the 60% when we're negotiating or talking. We should be concentrating of how much on the 60 we should be doing. I think the 15 is very obtainable, and I know some cities, to answer through you, Madam Chair, that it happened in many cities like Cambridge and Somerville, and they're going up to 20 and 22%, not 15%. So it's doable when the city or the group wants to do it. And if it's desirable, and Salem is, I don't think we're going to have a problem doing it. It's just, I think the developers, for whatever reason, they think we are weak, whether because of our administration, because of our negotiation, whatever the reason, they think we are weak and they are acting upon it. They're not acting upon what they really do. And the financiers or any financial institute, I know for a fact it depends on your credit and on your ability and on your history as a developer as much as on the profitable of the project. So there are many factors why any institution will finance a project. How much income is one of the factors, because we know for a fact that sometimes if you have bad credit, doesn't matter what it is, you're not going to get financed, and somebody with good credit will be able to finance things that otherwise wouldn't go to somebody with less developer credit. Our market and what we've been doing for years now basically put us in the situation we are in. And we are still building that same market that's increasing our numbers. We have a lot of market rate that are very expensive in all terms to Salem. And we are still not looking at any way that to reduce this market. And by keep doing what we are doing, we are gonna go up and only up no matter what kind. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am for passing this or something similar. It's not I'm against the ordinance, but I think we need to really improve it, and we need to start going in that way where we are doing a change to our market, not just one ordinance at a time, not just one building at a time. The whole picture has to change. And we need to go in a direction where we are building units and we are telling everybody we need our rates and our people to benefit out of it. I wouldn't even consider the 80% because it's not for us. We are still attracting people from other markets like Boston and something in that expense. We need to start attracting our people, our Salem residents, our kind of income, our kind of jobs, our kind of things to be in Salem. We're not. We're still attracting, especially with building new train stations to bring people from Boston and from those other markets. We need to start directing our marketing, our development, our intention, our ordinances, our everything for Salem. I think the 15% is very doable. I think even at 20% in our market is doable, because I know how attractive Salem is. And I know how some houses where I look at it's like, how do you even pay this? And they're going for $600,000 and $700,000. That, in my opinion, I don't think it's worth half that much. This is Salem. It is that attractive, and we need to use this for our benefit. We are not. Our administration isn't. Our negotiations aren't. And definitely our discussion. We are discussing what's good for the developers without the developers and the real estate investors having to say a word or raise a finger. This needs to change. And I think the 15 is a no-brainer. Thank you for allowing me to speak this long. Thank you.
Thank you, Fuzzy. Many additional members of the public? Seeing none. Councilors, any additional comments? Councilor Dominguez, your hand went up first.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and being member of the committee. I wanted to address some of the concern made by the good councilor Ward 3. And I also wanted to express myself to the general public. Initially, just for the record, I never say I'm against this ordinance. I just want to specifically make it clear that we need to be a better negotiator. I feel that the results that we've seen so far in our city stating that we are very weak negotiating with the developers. Regardless of what we wanted to say in the book about being part of the being part of the logical formula that is there, we are not negotiating the right way. And I want to use the same term that everybody's using, an affordable crisis. What that say automatically when it's an affordable, it say that, when it's a crisis, that say that the normal way of doing business need to be changed. We're in a crisis right now in the health environment, so everything changed. Same way we say we had a affordable crisis, everything need to be changed and we need to attack in a different way. I don't think that by asking more, by being more aggressive and by balance, the fee of more is wrong. It's the opposite. We are mentioned, I hear a lot of people comments, and I think that if I take their word, we wanted to make it happen, but at the end of the day, we are not willing to make the sacrifice to be more aggressive and negotiate in a better term. There is not a negotiation that doesn't gonna ask. This is part of the negotiation. The negotiation is not being done right. And I want to answer that we have so many apartments built lately, and the affordability component in those is minimal, it's nothing. It's saying clearly that we're paying higher price. The residents of Salem, the citizens are paying higher price than the developers. It's about time that we balance the field. Let's ask a little bit more to the developer. We had a crisis. Everybody needs to understand that if you want to profit $1, let's make it only for $50, 50 cents. Because this is not normal. We know in the normal time. So we need to ask for more. Formula is what we have. I think that Councilor Sargent expressed it very clearly. If we approve a density bonus, which is high, let's make a higher affordability component. And that's going to happen. But you need to start by seeing exactly what you're putting on the table and what you're going to get back out of the negotiation. Out of the negotiation so far, we get nothing compared to what they get. And it's about time, especially now, during this pandemic, during what we're going to face in the future. If we are not more aggressive, we're going to see a very deeply crisis that nobody's going to be able to live here. Building more apartments, building more housing doesn't mean going to help the affordability components. It's the opposite. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of buildings, a lot of projects, but none of them really helping the issue that we had. We are not targeting the issue that we had. The affordability component is not being touched. So that's my response. I don't have the formula. I'm only one person, but I've seen the result, and I'm seeing it day by day, including people in the public comments, making public comments, being hurt by this crisis. And at the end of the day, they don't really understand that we need to move differently. If we don't move differently, we'll solve. So that's my answer.
Councilor Marcelo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if Amanda or Tom can speak at all about Somerville and Cambridge that were brought up by Fuzzy. Have there been changes in their inclusionary zoning to bring it up to 20%?
Is Amanda still here? She's off my screen. I can just share a little bit. Back when we were meeting on this, and Amanda, if you remember the details better than I do or have more information, but we were talking about, I think it was Somerville. It was Cambridge or Somerville that had increased its affordability requirements. And this goes back about a year ago where we were discussing it. And one of the impacts was that there was sort of a pause in development things were in the pipeline were still going, but it was creating a barrier to the project's finance. The projects weren't penciling anymore with that requirement. I can't speak, in any specifics. This was sort of a reaction to, when that came up in one of our discussions. And Amanda, I don't know if you have more information or better recollection than I do.
I'm sorry, I had to step away for a minute. Can you repeat the question?
I was just asking if you had any information on Cambridge and Somerville, as was brought up in the public comment, that they have increased their percentage to 20%.
So we did look at both those ordinances, and I do want to note that with Cambridge, they allow for they require 20% of the units, rental units, to be affordable between 50 and 80% area median income. So it's tiered, but they do allow for a fee in lieu. And so if the project doesn't work, if certain criteria can be met and they're up against certain constraints, they can opt to pay money instead of building the unit. They also allow for a density bonus of up to 30%. And so while they do offer more units, they have other flexibility within the ordinance that Salem doesn't have. In terms of Somerville, they also have a tiered version where it depends on how many units are being built, but and it's really complicated, their ordinance. And that was one of the things that we heard pretty clearly, that this ordinance should be very simple. It shouldn't be complicated. You shouldn't have to do this fancy math to figure out 17 and a half units between 8 and 17 and 20% of the units at 18 and less, it gets, Somerville's very complicated. And you'll see that in that handout chart that you have that shows the different Massachusetts policies. And then also Somerville allows for off-site units or fees in lieu when certain criteria are met. So again, they allow more flexibility than what we were willing to provide. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. I would just add that that is one good thing about this ordinance is that it's very straightforward. It does not allow payment in lieu of building these units, and that's really, really important. If we really want these affordable units at 60%, we can't allow any sort of a get around on that. And so I feel very strongly that this is a really good ordinance, and I really want to move on this before more development is approved in Salem. I think this is a really good chance right now. I understand that people want more units built at this deep affordability. I get that. I'm not sure who the negotiation is. I mean, where this negotiation was happening. This is just policy building. This is not negotiation. So I would really like my fellow counselors to understand that this is an excellent opportunity and we really need to move forward on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And I know that the word negotiation has come up a lot, and I do want to emphasize that the 10% is the minimum. If a developer does come forward with, after this is adopted, the planning board or whoever permit granting authority they're talking to, they can negotiate for more. 10% is the minimum, it's not the maximum. We could ask for more if they're asking for, I don't know, zoning relief or whatever. So that's really important to remember, that we're not saying we can only ask for 10. We are saying we are requiring 10%, but feel free to build more. So I just want to make sure that that point is made. So I'm not saying that there's no room for this negotiation, but right now, again, we have nothing that requires units being built at 60% AMI. That's Salem, based on what we heard from Salem residents, that's their income level. We have nothing. And the reason why Boston, Somerville, Cambridge folks keep coming here, because they're 80% AMI units. They can totally afford that. So that's why they can come and afford it. But those 60% AMI households, like Felipe just mentioned, who are already living here, they can't afford it. They can't afford the 80% AMI units. They're not being built. So I'll just say that, I'll just leave it at that. Councillor Sargent.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. And you're right about Boston people coming this way, but to them, even a market rate unit is a deal from paying someplace like the North End. So, and we're building, with 10%, we're going to build 90% of our units will be market rate. And Salem is getting pretty congested, as we all know. But I mean, even if we went to something like a 12.5%, we would accomplish the affordable housing that we would with a bonus, but without the 23 extra market rate units. I mean, at 100% or 100 units at 10% is, of course, 10 units of affordable. You know, 100 at 12.5% is 12.5 units. If we kept it at 10%, we'd have to go to 125 units to get to 12.5. So we have to build 25 more units, most of them market rate, to get to 12.5. So we could not have the density bonus and go from 10% to 12.5% and get the same amount of affordable units at the 60% AMI. So just a simple move to 12.5%, which we already have as affordable housing, would give us the affordable units we need without having to make the density that much higher to do it. We'd get the affordable units at 100 units being built at 12.5 that we get at 125 being built at the 10%. So just a simple switch to 12.5%. So we could accomplish a few more affordable units without having to give the density bonus, and be in a good place, I think. Thank you.
Any further comments?
No.
From
And
other
that's what I'd see, you know, early on, we did study a lot of different cities, and there were many different combinations of affordable housing. Some 15. I think Peabody started at 25%, and then came down because they had some issues with building and all that. And I wouldn't ask another counselor to go research in every city in the state to find that out. So, you know, I'll do my best to do some banking research, but I do appreciate the input. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Amanda did put together a table that compares all the easy. Pull it up on the screen right now. I have it open. I think most of them require 80% AMI income. So, do you want me to put that up? With all the inclusionary zoning ordinances across the state to compare?
Yes, please.
Amanda, you want to do it or you want me to do it?
Oh, I just want to note that that's a handful of ordinances from across the state. There are over 100 communities in Massachusetts that have inclusionary zoning. So we just picked a handful. We chose the ones in the North Shore and then in the Boston region, and there might be a couple outliers in there.
Okay. Should we bring it up? Yes, no. Councilor Sargent, do you want me to bring that up?
I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Could you email it to us so we can take some time to look it over, please?
I believe that was emailed it to us about around end of March.
I'll check my emails.
Any further comments from councilors? Councilor Kwasniewski.
On that list, Amanda, do you know how many other communities are at 60% AMI?
So there are some communities that have tiers at 60% area median income. Some even have tiers, as low as 50%. But in those cases where it's tiered, it's a certain portion of the units have to be provided at that lower income level, but then some of the units at a higher income level. And so, yeah, there are a couple, maybe 3 or 4 that allow it at 60% or below, but then again, they go as high as 100% area median income.
Thank you. I just don't want to miss the opportunity for us not to do something important over here. I think that I know we're talking about trying to get the numbers, and everything's all in good intention, but it seems that we've drafted something that's pretty rock solid and very, very important to the people who are looking for the affordability factor. I just don't want to let this opportunity go and continue it. I'm going to vote for this to be referred to the City Council positively. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from councilors? Councilor Hapworth.
I'll just put out for context. I have that chart also. So for context sake, Beverly is at, I think it's a more complex inclusionary zoning ordinance, but I think it's 8% of units at 60% AMI. So I think that provides some context. If you just get a chance, please look through what all these communities have done and what Amanda has put together. This is one of the first things I asked for when I came on in January, and it's when you look at what we have versus what other communities have right now, we're both much more progressive on the affordability and the AMI. We're also much simpler. If you look at there's some of these are very, very difficult to understand. If you look at ours, just a very quick explanation, you understand what we're trying to do here. We've also sort of plugged a lot of the gaps and a lot of the issues that other communities have run into around ways that developers can get around. And we talk about the negotiation with developers. We've learned from what other communities have done and what developers will naturally try to do. And each one of these issues that happens with inclusionary zoning across the country with developers is addressed in this ordinance that we've put together here. So I don't want to give the impression that this was created sort of haphazardly, or there was not a lot of thought put into this. I mean, the math is there on these. It's a simple, easy to understand ordinance. I'm also very, very much in favor of what we've created here, and I would love to see 15% as well. That's what I talked about for a long time. I would love to see 20%. If you look at the math and you look at what we've put together and the research that we've done, it's just not there right now in this community. I think 10% at 60% is an incredibly progressive way to go. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Why don't I just pull it up real quick and show everyone. Members of the public could see it too. Let me just do this. So Amanda put this chart together back in March. Salem is the first row. We have the 10% at 60% AMI. And then if you go down, you can see Beverly has this tiered scenarios, and they allow for the units to be built off-site or pay out of it. They have density bonuses. Gloucester, also simple, 15% at 80 AMI, allowed to be paid off or built off-site. Peabody, similar. Swampscott, payoff, off-site, 80% AMI. Manchester, all of these allow developers to get out of it by paying or building it off-site. Same thing with Marblehead, tiered. Newburyport, same. Newton, very complicated. Looks like very complicated. Cambridge, we talked about this a little bit. I personally, just through my day job, I know that they struggle to get any built. Somerville, like Amanda said, very complicated. Burlington, 15% at 80 MI, but you can build off-site or pay off. Arlington, the same. Watertown, also complicated. Lincoln looks very complicated. Provincetown. Anyways, you get the gist. Any further comments from councilors? So Councilor Dibble had asked for us to keep this in committee so that he has a chance to participate in the discussion. I do want to extend that courtesy to him. I think our discussion tonight has been very productive. However, because of the timing of what happened with his family, I do think it's fair for him to maybe take some time to look at the ordinance over. And I'll just send a note to him to remind him to send any questions to staff. And then we'll take it up again at the standing committee meeting before our regular meeting next week and see if we could make a motion either way to refer out or keep in committee, which we'll talk about it then. So if members of the committee would like to make that motion, Councilor Sargent.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I did notice some of those numbers. Cambridge at 20% with 50 and 80% AMI. That seems like a difficult thing to accomplish, and I'll give you that. But what I didn't notice any bonuses there. I wonder if we could ask Amanda to send us if there's, unless it was farther down the line there. If I already have it on an email, I'll look back on my emails, but anything what different cities allow as bonuses, like we're proposing 25% bonus. So if we could do that.
Yeah, Councilor, the final column that says incentives, there are different density bonuses for all of them. So Cambridge in particular is a 30% bonus.
Great, thank you. I'll have it back on my emails.
Yeah, and it's interesting, they allowed the bonus to be gross square feet area, maybe? The gross floor area, not the actual unit, which is, how do you do that math? I don't know. It's kind of complicated. Okay. Amanda, you had your hand up?
I also want to know if you wanted to dig deeper into the ordinances, each municipality where it states their name, it's hyperlinked to the actual ordinance. So the more I'm pretty good at reading zoning ordinances, so I think I got it right. But if you want to go into the nuances more and understand it, you can click that and dive in, have some fun reading of zoning.
Thank you
for doing that work, Amanda. I'm sure it took a long time to put that table together. Any further comments from councilors? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion to keep this in committee.
Councilor Marcillo moves to keep the matter in committee.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Sargent. I'll take a roll call. Councilor Marcillo.
Yes.
Councilor Sargent.
Yes.
Councilor Paczynski.
Yes.
Councilor Madore, yes. Councilor Dibbles absent. The motion carries. The matter remains in committee. I'll take another motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Councilor Sargent moves to adjourn. Oh, we already lost one. I'll take a roll call on that. Councilor Marcillo.
Yes.
Councilor Sargent.
Yes.
Councilor Kwasniewski.
Yes.
Councilor Madore, yes. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.